Ritual monsters should have been the summoning method that defined the original Yu-Gi-Oh series. The entire story is built around ancient objects, forgotten ceremonies, sealed spirits, and power that demands a price. Yugi carries a pharaoh inside a puzzle. Pegasus sacrifices an eye for supernatural sight. Merrick's family carves its duty into human skin. Even an ordinary duel can become a shadow game once the right person decides that cards are no longer enough. Ritual summoning belongs naturally in that world. A duelist gathers the required pieces, offers monsters to a ceremony, and calls forward something that could not enter the duel normally. The mechanic already sounds like a miniature version of Yu-Gi-Oh's mythology. It also produced some of the most memorable monsters in Duel Monsters. Black Luster Soldier, Magician of Black Chaos, Relinquished, and the Masked Beast all feel important the moment they arrive. Their designs carry the weight of something forbidden or ancient. Their summoning sequences slow the duel down and tell the audience that a boundary is being crossed. Yet ritual monsters never become a stable part of the series. Yugi owns two of the most iconic ones and can go entire arcs without using either. Pegasus gives the mechanic its best showcase, disappears from the central conflict, and takes its strongest identity with him. Later rituals appear for a duel, perform one job, and vanish. By the end, fusion has become a recurring language for cooperation. The Egyptian gods dominate the mythology, and ritual summoning survives as an occasional reminder of an idea the series never fully developed. So, I want to look at how that happened. The answer begins before the anime, when ritual monsters work differently in Kazuki Takahashi's manga. That early version reveals the potential the mechanic had, and it also explains why the anime never seemed completely sure what a ritual monster was supposed to be. If you enjoy these longer Yu-Gi-Oh! Essays, subscribe. There are plenty of cards and mechanics from Duel Monsters that become more interesting once we separate what the manga invented, what the anime changed, and what the physical game eventually had to make playable. Ritual summoning first feels powerful because it asks for commitment. Drawing a strong monster is luck. Building a ritual is a decision. The duelist needs the ceremony, the required offerings, and a situation important enough to justify losing those resources. The sequence creates anticipation before the monster has done anything. We watch the ingredients gather. We understand that weaker creatures are being converted into a single chance to win. The manga makes that process personal. During Yugi's Duelist Kingdom semifinal against Mai, Black Luster Soldier is connected directly to Gaia the Fierce Knight. Yugi activates Black Luster Ritual and sacrifices Kuriboh and Griffor, two monsters with low attack. Their souls represent light and darkness. Gaia enters the gateway created by the ceremony and emerges wearing the armor of Black Luster Soldier. This version gives every part of the ritual a purpose. Kuriboh has spent the duel looking useless to Mai. She openly questions why Yugi would place such a weak monster in his deck. Its weakness becomes one of the requirements for the ritual. Griffor completes the offering. Gaia provides the body that is transformed. Black Luster Soldier therefore carries the whole duel inside its arrival. Yugi has preserved small monsters that Mai dismissed, maintained Gaia long enough to use him, and turn those pieces into a warrior strong enough to overcome Harpy's pet dragon. I think this is one of the cleanest early examples of Takahashi making the rules serve the characters. Mai evaluates cards through visible strength. Yugi treats every card as a possible part of a larger answer. Black Luster Soldier rewards that difference. Its 3,000 attack points matter, though the route toward those points matters more. The ritual allows Yugi's faith in Kuriboh to become physically visible. The Duel Monsters anime changes the procedure. Yugi sacrifices Gaia and Kuriboh to ritual summon Black Luster Soldier. This fits the standardized level-based system that viewers would learn from the card game. Gaia and Kuriboh provide 8 levels together, matching Black Luster Soldier. The scene remains exciting, and Gaia's presence still hints at the connection. The transformation itself becomes less precise. Griffor disappears from the equation, Gaia becomes part of the payment, and Black Luster Soldier arrives as a separate monster card. That sounds like a minor rules correction. It changes the mechanic's future. In the manga, the ritual can be understood as an upgrade for a monster already involved in the duel. In the anime and physical game, the player needs a ritual monster in hand, its matching ritual spell, and enough monsters to pay the level requirement. One evocative ceremony becomes a package of cards that must line up at the same moment. The manga repeats its transformation logic during the final duel with Pegasus. Dark Magician remains on the field as the vessel. Dark Magic Ritual consumes Jigen Bakadon and Winged Dragon, Guardian of the Fortress, turning Dark Magician into Magician of Black Chaos. The anime again rearranges the materials around the card game system, using Dark Magician and Jigen Bakudan as the tributes needed to summon Magician of Black Chaos. The original manga version quietly creates a second line of progression for Yugi. Gaia can enter the ritual and become Blackluster Soldier. Dark Magician can enter another ritual and become Magician of Black Chaos. These are recognizable monsters passing through extreme forms. A ritual deck for Yugi could have grown from that idea. His weaker monsters would provide light, darkness, or magical energy. His established warriors would become vessels. Every ritual would tell us which relationships inside his deck made the transformation possible. That potential survives in the artwork and the names. Blackluster Soldier still looks like Gaia after reaching a higher order of knighthood. Magician of Black Chaos still feels like Dark Magician after gaining access to older and more dangerous magic. The physical game later built whole families around those connections. Duel monsters already possess the foundation. The anime rarely follows it beyond the original scenes. Pegasus comes closest to giving ritual summoning a complete identity. His Black Illusion ritual calls Relinquished, a level 1 monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. Those numbers create a strange first impression. A ceremony has been performed, a sacrifice has been made, and the result appears weaker than almost everything Yugi has played. Relinquished immediately absorbs an opponent's monster and takes its strength. Any attempt to destroy it threatens the creature trapped inside. This is the kind of effect a ritual deserves. The cost opens access to a monster that changes how the duel must be played. Relinquish turns Yugi's strength into Pegasus's protection. It makes attacking morally and mechanically uncomfortable because Yugi sees his own monster being used as a shield. Pegasus has spent the duel invading Yugi's mind, stealing information before it can become action, and using Yugi's plans against him. Relinquish performs the same violation on the field. It takes possession of something personal and forces its owner to fight through it. The monster's design also feels connected to Pegasus' Millennium Eye. Relinquished is covered in unsettling shapes and empty spaces, with a single eye commanding the center. It belongs beside the elegant cartoons and the grotesque illusions in his deck. The ritual marks the moment when Pegasus leaves behind the playful humiliation of Toon World and reveals what sits underneath it. His deck becomes colder once the cartoons stop smiling. This is where ritual summoning reaches its highest potential in the original story. The summon has a distinct visual language, the monster justifies the setup, and the entire strategy expresses the person using it. Relinquished could only belong to Pegasus. Even its dependence on an opponent's monster suits a man whose greatest advantage comes from entering another person's mind. The physical card system creates a problem that the manga could mostly ignore. A ritual monster sits in the main deck. Its matching ritual spell also sits there. The player usually needs both in hand, followed by enough levels from other monsters to complete the summon. Early ritual monsters offered very little help in finding those pieces or recovering the resources afterward. A fusion summon could also demand several cards, though the fusion monster waited outside the main deck. Drawing polymerization without materials was awkward. Drawing a ritual monster without its specific spell created another dead half of the same plan. Relinquish survives this structure better than most early rituals. It only requires a level 1 offering, and its absorption effect can repay some of the lost resources. Blackluster Soldier asks for considerably more and offers raw attack. Magician of Black Chaos has 2800 attack and no printed effect in its original card form. The Masked Beast reaches 3200 and also relies on strength alone. Their summoning scenes promise forbidden power. Their actual rewards often resemble large normal monsters reached through a longer route. Duel Monsters inherits both versions at once. It wants the manga's drama and the card game's recognizable rules. Rituals are presented as rare, almost legendary events, while duelists sometimes carry all the required pieces with no support system explaining how they expect to find them consistently. The anime can simply arrange the correct draw whenever a ritual is needed. That solves one duel and prevents the mechanic from developing a believable strategy. Battle City makes the problem clearer. Loomis and Umbra use Curse of the Masked Beast to summon the Masked Beast during their rooftop tag duel against Yugi and Kaiba. The monster has 3200 attack, enough to exceed Blue Eye's White Dragon and establish an immediate threat. It crushes Kaiba's battle ox and adds to the pressure of a duel where losing can mean falling from a skyscraper. The ritual fits the visual theme of the rare hunters using it. Their entire strategy revolves around masks, restrictions, and layered traps. A ceremony that produces a demonic masked creature feels completely natural for them. The manga also treats the masked beast as a ritual result rather than an ordinary physical card. There was room here for the ritual to connect their two decks, perhaps requiring one offering from each duelist or turning their cooperation into the source of the monster's power. The scene mostly uses it as a large attacker. Once the shock of 3D200 attack has passed, the masked beast has little identity of its own. The duel's more memorable systems come from Mask of Restrict, Mask of the Accursed, Mask of Dispel, and the constant conflict between Yugi and Kaiba. The ritual supplies muscle, while the ordinary spell and trap cards carry the personality. Mako Tsunami's Fortress Whale follows a similar path. In the Battle City manga, Fortress Whale is an ordinary monster. The anime turns it into a ritual monster summoned through Fortress Whale's oath, with Great White and Jellyfish offered to bring it out. The change gives Mako a ceremony that matches his ocean theme. A sea duelist making an oath and calling a gigantic whale from the depth sounds like a perfect use of ritual summoning. The result has 2 through 350 attack and no defining ritual effect. Umi increases its strength, and it can apply pressure alongside the legendary fisherman. Most of its danger comes from the field around it. The anime adds a costly summoning method, without giving Fortress Whale a role that explains the cost. It becomes rarer and harder to summon while remaining essentially the same creature the manga allowed Mako to play directly. These two Battle City rituals reveal opposite versions of the same limitation. The Masked Beast has enough attack to create a crisis, yet it lacks a deeper function. Fortress Whale has atmosphere and character connection, yet its power falls short of the ceremony. Both disappear once their duels end. Neither encourages Yugi, Kaiba, or Joey to think differently about ritual summoning afterward. Yugi's own rituals almost vanish during the arc, where deck construction becomes more formal. Battle City introduces tribute summoning rules, 40-card decks, direct attacks, and clearer card text. This should have been the ideal place to establish how Yugi searches for Black Luster Ritual or protects the materials for Dark Magic Ritual. His major victories move elsewhere. Slifer gives him divine power. Dark Magician Girl expands his magician family. Buster Blader and Dark Magician produce Dark Paladin. Magnet Warriors combine into Valkyrian. Ritual monsters remain part of his history without becoming part of his evolving identity. Fusion succeeds in the series because relationships can be expressed through materials. Yugi and Joey create Black Skull Dragon from monsters associated with both of them. Yugi and Kaiba create Dragon Master Knight from Black Luster Soldier and Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Dark Paladin joins Yugi's Magician with a warrior built to kill dragons. The audience can understand the meaning of those combinations before the attack begins. Ritual summoning had access to a different emotion. It could express what a duelist is willing to surrender. A ritual creates power through loss. That idea suits Yugi, whose story repeatedly asks him to trust weak cards and risk important monsters for a later answer. It suits Kaiba, who treats nearly every card as expendable beside Blue Eyes. It suits Merrick and Bakura, whose decks already treat the graveyard, sacrifice, and suffering as sources of control. Duel Monsters rarely turns that cost into character. The anime original material occasionally returns to the mechanic and keeps revealing fragments of a stronger direction. In the first virtual world story, Yugi summons Black Luster Soldier again. The setting allows only dragon monsters to attack, so the newly summoned warrior is immediately immobilized. Yugi eventually fuses it with Kaiba's Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to create Dragon Master Knight. The final monster is iconic. The sequence also reduces Black Luster Soldier to an ingredient. Yugi completes a ritual, pays its cost, and receives a monster that cannot participate under the current rule. Its useful future lies inside a fusion summon. Waking the Dragons later repeats the broad pattern during the battle with darts. Black Luster Soldier and Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon return, become Dragon Master Knight, and give Yugi and Kaiba a shared answer. Fusion receives the emotional payoff. The ritual provides one half of the material. Magician of Black Chaos returns during Yugi's duel with Noah. Yugi properly uses Dark Magic Ritual, and the monster joins Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl in one of the anime's most satisfying images of his spellcaster family. Noah's Chaos Barrier Field turns those allies against each other, and Hino Kagutsuchi eventually destroys Magician of Black Chaos. The return works because the audience remembers what the monster meant against Pegasus. Its role still lasts only a small section of one duel. Noah also exposes how unclear the category had become. The physical card game identifies Shinado, King of a Higher Plane, as a ritual monster summoned with Shinado's Arc. In the anime, Shinato's arc behaves as part of Noah's Deckmaster strategy, and Shinato enters as a replacement Deckmaster through the arc's effect. The scene does not function like an ordinary ritual summon. A monster later sold as one of the era's major rituals receives its dramatic identity from a completely different rule system on television. This process occurred several times around early Yu-Gi-Oh! A striking monster or transformation appeared in the story first. The card game later had to decide which border, summoning condition, and printed effect could reproduce it. Ritual became a useful category for creatures associated with ceremonies, even when the original scene followed different rules. Darkmaster Zork is another extreme example. The physical card is a ritual monster. Zork's role in the manga and memory world is the ancient evil at the center of the entire conflict. Summoned through the Millennium items and human sacrifice, nobody resolves a normal ritual spell during a duel and places that version of Zork onto a duel disc. The card category and the story concept therefore drift apart. Ritual can mean a blue main deck monster requiring a particular spell. It can also mean a transformation, a special game event, a deckmaster replacement, or an adaptation of supernatural material that was never designed as a card duel. The name remains evocative while the series loses a consistent answer to how the mechanic should feel. Kaiba's Paladin of White Dragon offers one of the better laid attempts. During his duel with Alistair, Kaiba activates White Dragon Ritual and summons the Paladin. The monster can tribute itself to special summon Blue Eyes White Dragon from the hand or deck. Kaiba uses it again in the duel against Darts. Here the ritual has a clear job and a clear owner. The Paladin exists to find Blue Eyes. Its ceremony prepares the arrival of Kaiba's sacred monster. The design even turns the ritual monster into a servant willing to give itself up for the dragon. Kaiba's deck has always been organized around that hierarchy, so the effect feels honest to him. Its success also contains the wider disappointment. Paladin of White Dragon is rarely allowed to matter as a monster. Its best action is leaving the field. The ritual serves as a decorated staircase leading to the creature Kaiba already values. The series finally gives ritual summoning consistency by making it support another identity. There was a full system waiting inside these isolated examples. Yugi could have treated rituals as the highest forms of familiar monsters. Pegasus could have represented rituals based on possession, where an offering becomes a vessel for an illusion. Kaiba could have used nights and ceremonies that prepare different forms of Blue Eyes. Mako could have summoned ancient sea creatures whose effects depended on what he offered. Loomis and Umbra could have completed rituals together, making their shared field feel dangerous before their teamwork collapsed. Such an approach would also have separated Ritual from Fusion. Fusion asks which monsters can become one. Ritual asks who receives the power and what must be surrendered to awaken it. The manga understood this distinction most clearly with Gaia and Dark Magician. One known monster enters the ceremony. Other creatures provide the energy. The result preserves the vessel's identity while changing its status. The standardized game removed that vessel from the requirement. Any collection of levels could summon the same result. This made the rule flexible and easier to print across many decks. It also weakened the story contained inside each ceremony. Blackluster Soldier no longer required Gaia. Magician of Black Chaos no longer required Dark Magician. The connections survived through appearance, memory, and later support cards instead of the original summoning rule. I understand why the anime followed the physical system. Yu-Gi-Oh! Had become a card franchise, and children watching the show needed to recognize procedures they could reproduce. Every summoning method eventually needs rules broad enough to support more than one scripted scene. The trouble comes from standardizing the cost while leaving most of the early rewards unchanged. 3 or 4 cards disappear from the player's hand, and a large monster with no effect stands where they used to be. Relinquished proves that the structure itself was never hopeless. Its low level reduces the burden. Its absorption immediately interacts with the opponent. Its effect repays the summon and changes the duel. Paladin of White Dragon proves that a ritual can create consistency when the monster advances the deck's central plan. The manga versions of Blackluster Soldier and Magician of Black Chaos prove that a ritual can deepen existing monsters through transformation. Duel Monsters contains every ingredient needed for a strong summoning identity. Those ingredients are scattered across different rule sets and different arcs. So were ritual monsters treated badly? I think they were treated with enormous respect in individual moments and very little commitment across the full series. Their entrances are rarely casual. Blackluster Soldier defeating Mai's strongest formation feels legendary. Relinquished announces the darkest stage of the Pegasus duel. Magician of Black Chaos carries Yugi through the final pressure of that shadow game. The Masked Beast makes two disposable rare hunters feel dangerous enough to challenge Yugi and Kaiba together. The series understands how to present a ritual. It struggles to imagine the turn after the presentation. Most of these monsters attack once, solve one obstacle, or become material for something else. Few receive support cards, recurring tactics, or a relationship with their duelist that can grow. Yugi's Dark Magician becomes a character across the whole show. Blackluster Soldier remains an event. That rarity protects some of the magic. Seeing Blackluster Soldier every other duel would have made the ritual feel routine. A ceremony needs weight, and weight requires restraint. The series could have preserved that restraint while allowing the mechanic to develop. One carefully built ritual in each major arc would have been enough. Each return could have changed the requirement, revealed a new transformation, or forced Yugi to decide which monsters he could afford to offer. The final irony is that ritual summoning fits the oldest version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Better than almost any mechanic created afterward. The franchise began as a story about games that reveal character and ancient power entering modern life. Ritual monsters combine both ideas. They turn a card game procedure into a ceremony and make strategy look like myth. The manga uses them as transformations because Takahashi was still inventing duel monsters while drawing it. That freedom lets Gaia become Blackluster Soldier and Dark Magician become Magician of Black Chaos, without worrying about where a blue monster card sits in the deck. The anime arrives during the moment when imagination is becoming a product with fixed rules. It preserves the spectacle, changes the procedure, and spends the rest of its run moving between those two versions. What remains is a mechanic filled with iconic monsters and unfinished possibilities. Rituals gave Pegasus his most disturbing weapon, Yugi two of his greatest designs, and Kaiba one of his most fitting routes into Blue Eyes. They could have become the language of sacrifice, transformation, and inherited power across duel monsters. Instead, they appear like ancient ruins inside the series, impressive, mysterious, and separated from the living structure built around them. Maybe that is why people still remember them so strongly. Ritual monsters always feel as if they came from a deeper version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That we only saw for a few turns at a time. Every summoning circle promised that the game was about to open into something older and stranger. The monster arrived, the duel continued, and the doorway closed before the series discovered how much was waiting behind it.